Hey, what up, everybody? This is Stevie Breach coming to you with the big talk of the big UFC fight coming up. Of course, this is going to be UFC 182. This is probably going to be the biggest UFC pay-per-view of the year, and for any sort of wrestling and MMA fan, it's probably going to be one of the biggest days in the history of professional wrestling and MMA. Back-to-back, you have UFC coming to you with 182, and you have an hour intermission, and then we go right to Japan for wrestling live from the Tokyo Dome. This will be the first time I'm checking out Japanese wrestling since being a tape trader back in the day and accidentally getting a tape and not being in love with it. But being a subscriber to the Wrestling Observer for the last good little while, I really am looking forward to seeing the Jon Jones fight going up against Daniel Cormier, and then having a little bit of an intermission, and going right into watching New Japan on the New Japan World app, and seeing what goes on from there. The Jon Jones versus Daniel Cormier is one of the biggest hype fights we've seen in a long time. Jon Jones, one of the best UFC fighters of all time. This guy, honestly, in my opinion, should be undefeated. He's a guy that was disqualified in one match for illegal elbow shots, but from going back and watching that fight, I think that was a bad referee stoppage, and I definitely think that Jon Jones definitely should be undefeated. To talk about this fight, we must go all the way back to Jon Jones' history, talking about the UFC 165. Jon Jones going up against Alexander Gustafsson. That was at UFC 165. This was the fight where Jon Jones badly got cut above the eye in the very first round, and he had to fight all the way back to come from behind and win this fight. This fight was went the distance and went the decision. It's been debated back and forth about whether if Gustafsson didn't get the benefit of the doubt and Jones got the victory, and it just shouldn't have gone the other way. I honestly think that Jon Jones won the fight. I think that Gustafsson really did put up a good fight against Jon Jones and does deserve to get a rematch somewhere down the line. And the fact that he hasn't gotten a rematch really is a little bit of a crime. The fact that this match was even sort of scheduled, and Jon Jones was able to talk Dana White out of not giving Gustafsson the fight and saying he wanted to fight Daniel Cormier, to me, honestly, it is. I don't know really what to say. Why Dana White would give Jon Jones all of this sort of freedom to pick when and who he wants to fight, and how it goes from there. But that fight at UFC 165, it doesn't matter if you want to call it an instant classic, an epic fight, the fight of the year, whatever it was. This fight has won tons of awards. It's one of the best light heavyweight championship fights of all time. It is the fight that put Jon Jones over Tito Ortiz for the most consecutive title defenses for a UFC light heavyweight champion. And from there, Jon Jones went on to beat Glover Teixeira at UFC 169. That was a good fight. It was a highly, really big, excited fight. And this was another fight that sort of Jon Jones. I don't really know if you can put this on Jon Jones if this was on him or how it was supposed to be. But basically, this was a fight that was scheduled for 169. Then it got pushed to 170. It got pushed to 171, and then finally, these guys actually did have a fight on 172. From there, Dana White, I don't know if he was listening or if he just wanted to see this fight again because of how well this went in 2013. Basically, he announced that Gustafsson was going to be the number one contender. From there, basically, they signed up to have this fight, only to have Jon Jones say that he wasn't going to sign. He didn't want to fight, and that he wanted to fight Daniel Cormier instead. This fight was finally put together after basically Dana White said, forget it, Jon Jones, you're not going to get what you want. We're going to have this fight at UFC 178, and Jon Jones, I guess, finally put his foot down, and he signed it for the fight. That was going to be at 178. Then after that, Gustafsson was forced to pull out due to a torn meniscus, and Jon Jones got his way in the end, basically with Daniel Cormier filling in and being the guy who was going to step up at 178. And then after that, Jon Jones, he sustained a leg injury, forcing the fight to be bumped from 178 all the way down to 182. Why at this point they didn't pull the original fighter back into the mix and say that John Jones was now going to fight Gustafsson, who's now healthy and ready to look for a fight. They're sticking with Daniel Cormier. I think that the fact is, the playing off the fact of when they had the big deal to sort of push this fight. It was Daniel Cormier and John Jones jawing words back and forth, getting a fight during the press conference to sort of to tear everything up. This is the thing that basically got John Jones's Nike deal stripped away. He lost a 6-figure income just for trying to hawk some tennis shoes and some sweatshirts and things like that. Daniel Cormier and John Jones have gone back and forth in various media interviews, basically with John Jones being called fake and basically trying to live up to this persona of being this super nice guy when off camera he's this virtuous big asshole that everybody in UFC knows he is. I think that when it comes down to it at UFC 182, this is going to be one hell of a fight. I think that I really am looking forward to this more than any fight that I've ever been there. I know that John Jones isn't my favorite fighter in my young UFC career. I really like Conor McGregor, who's going to be fighting in a few weeks after this fight. But definitely, you can cut the tension with a knife, to steal from Gorilla Monsoon. When he's talking about like Hulk Hogan versus Andre the Giant. I don't think that Daniel Cormier is one of the best UFC fighters of all time, but there's something when I listen to John Jones speak about this fight, he doesn't seem 100% confident about going into this fight. I think that Daniel Cormier could put up a fight against John Jones. John Jones, of course, he's overcome great odds. If you go back and you think about the fight where basically he broke his toe, and his toe was sticking way off to the side, and there was a good chance that if he didn't knock him out, Chael Sonnen in that fight, that was at UFC 159, that basically John Jones was going to lose and he would lose his championship basically just due to a technicality. But he was able to TKO Chael Sonnen there in the first round right before the end of the round. More than likely, if it would have went to the extra 30 seconds, the round would have ended. A doctor would have stepped in and told him that he wasn't going to be able to keep going. But it's just one of the magical things about John Jones. So we're going to have to see what goes down with this fight. Honestly, it's probably going to be one of the fights of the year. I know that UFC stepped up and said that they were bumping the price of the pay-per-view $5. At the end of the day, I think $5 makes this show $70. $70 for UFC, honestly, in my mind, is pretty expensive. But when it comes down to it, more than likely, everybody's going to have, people coming over to the house, everybody throwing money into the bucket, and it's probably going to, make it not as bad as it could be. When you're looking at the card, there's a lot of guys on here that I don't know who they are. Donald Cerrone is the guy that I remember his name. I don't know who he is. He's going to be fighting. And then everybody else throughout the card are people that I honestly just don't know. And we'll have to see where we go from there. Even on the preliminary card is people that I have no clue who they are. But every time I watch UFC, there's always somebody who sticks out in my mind that I want to make sure that I've seen again. And I'm really pumped for the Conor McGregor fight in a few weeks from here on out. So it's just sort of pushing us in that new direction of UFC, getting super fight cards. So, it sort of sucks, when you think about the great UFC shows from 2005 and 2006. They were really good because they didn't have as many shows. Now UFC, basically has, Fight Pass. They've got shows that are on Fox Sports 1 just about almost, it seems like every other weekend. You've got pay-per-views that they're trying to book, and it's just like you don't have super cards anymore. You might get one fight in the main event, and you might get another fighter on the undercard that you might know, but very rarely do you get really like a guaranteed fight. Like, this is the show that you must see. But somehow this John Jones versus Daniel Cormier fight has that feel of something that we got to see this. We got to check this out. So I'm pumped. I hope you guys are pumped. Let's talk about it in the comment section down below. Hey, what up, everybody? This is Stevie Breach coming to you. This is going to be a video talking all about UFC 182. It's going to be tomorrow from the MGM Grand live in Los Angeles. I'm going to be watching this one, and then right after that, it's going to be an awesome night where I'm going to be watching live wrestling from Japan, New Japan Wrestling, live from the Tokyo Dome. It's going to be my first experience watching Japanese wrestling on pay-per-view, and I'm honestly really, really pumped up about it. It's going to be a big sports day tomorrow, UFC and New Japan Wrestling. I'm pumped for it. Hopefully you guys are pumped too. I know there's a lot of people that are treating this like a Super Bowl weekend, pretty much. I've been to a lot of big wrestling events in my time. I've been to the Georgia Dome for WrestleMania 27. I went to when was WrestleMania 20? That one was in Miami for WrestleMania 28. SummerSlam 2011. That one was WrestleMania 30 in New Orleans, and all of those were crazy. And I'm sure tomorrow at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas, right there on the Strip, this is going to be a big one. One that I've been watching a lot more UFC as of late, but it's one of those that I really wish I could be at, because this is an atmosphere that I wish I could capture in a bottle and really feel what's going down, because this is really a big time blood feud that's really going to spill out all over the floor. Jon Jones going up against Daniel Cormier. Of course, the prize that is going to be out there is the light heavyweight UFC championship of the world. Normal price for a UFC pay-per-view, $49.95. We had a little bit of a bump because UFC could feel that this is going to be one of those big-time shows that everybody wants to see. This is a big feud that's been building for a long time. Finally get a spill out. Maybe the injury from Jon Jones pushing back the show is going to be making it a little bit better. You got the last one that they bumped the price up on was Silva versus Weidman. Of course, that one had the undercard of Rousey versus Tate. That had a little bit of an undercard. This really is just built about Jon Jones going up against Daniel Cormier. That's really the only thing that's on there. You have Cerrone fighting on the undercard. Only one match. Basically, he's the only guy that I know of on the whole thing. So it is what it is. You got to give a lot of thanks to Gustafsson. Okay, fuck it. You know what I'm trying to say. I'm not the biggest UFC fan, but I'm trying. And they had the big fight of the year. It was supposed to be Jon Jones getting the rematch, Jon Jones giving the rematch. I apologize. And then basically Jon Jones said he didn't want to fight him. He wanted to fight Daniel Cormier. And then basically Gustafsson got the fight, but then Gustafsson got injured, and they gave the fight to Cormier anyways, and it just was a big old, miraculously, it all worked out at the end for UFC 182, basically for here. Jon Jones, the disqualification is his only loss. Basically, a lot of people who follow Jon Jones, follow UFC, have said that loss basically was a big old travesty. It never should have happened. And that basically, Jon Jones is looked at as by a lot of fighters and a lot of people who watch UFC as an undefeated fighter. They don't really count that fight. Cormier is another guy that goes out there. He has no losses. He's also undefeated. The battle of these guys started going back in 2013 when basically Jon Jones knocked Daniel Cormier, a former Olympic wrestler. He was a top 3 wrestler in the world. Even though he doesn't have an Olympic medal to go with it, he has a lot of respect. And basically Jon Jones said if he was able to get into the octagon and sort of scrap around with Cormier, he would be able to take him down 9 times out of 10. From there, we went to basically the showdown, where basically we had the stare down between Cormier and Jon Jones, where Cormier pushed Jones, and then to throw a little bit more fuel on the fire, basically Cormier threw his shoe at Jon Jones. From there, just big fines were handed out to both fighters. It was a big travesty for UFC, who, boxing uses this as leverage to build up a fight a lot, but normally UFC doesn't really have to do that. They have, good television shows that they build up feuds with, and that's how they get it done. Basically the UFC banner fell down, and there's some, guy that was in the middle of them, got shoved and pushed around, and he looked pretty fucking scared, and I don't know why he jumped in the middle, but somebody had to, and once he got there, he was sort of like, like he was like in the running of the bulls, and the bulls running right at him. He wanted to be anywhere else than where he was. Jon Jones ended up losing his Nike deal. It said it cost him 6 figures right there, so that's a lot of money thrown out the window. Reebok came to his saving grace, basically with the UFC deal. He's going to be working, with Reebok as one of their main guys. They signed Jon Jones. They were able to step up, and they signed Ronda Rousey as well, 2 of the most biggest stars the UFC has. From there, of course, everybody knows the September match got canceled because of Jon Jones' injury. I think that this fight, honestly, is something that could easily bring in about 1 million buys. I know they were close with the Silva fight, got about 9,000 buys against Weidman, but we'll see what we can get from there. Lots of people thinking that basically Cormier is going to be able to find a way to wrestle Jones, and grind this one out for over 5 rounds. I think if Jon Jones is able to stand up with Cormier and not let Cormier take him down on the ground, I think that Jon Jones could knock this guy out in 3 rounds. That's basically where I'm going with my prediction is Jon Jones is going to be able to get the win. I think that this fight goes 5. I think this basically could go to Cormier's favor from there. So Jon Jones is going to have to try and stand up and knock this dude out. And I think that's what everybody wants to see. That's what everybody's going to be throwing down the money for. They want to see Jon Jones knock this motherfucker out, or they want to see Jon Jones get beat. He's one of the biggest heels in UFC. He's one of those guys that you love to hate him, even though you respect how good he is. And, that's the story. See what happens. UFC 182. It's going to be a great one. Peace out, everybody. Hey, what up, everybody? This is Stevie Breach. Today is fight day. This is going to be awesome. I need to save myself. I'm going to be up until a little bit after 3 a.m. today. Honestly, it's going to be a long one. We got UFC 182. I've been looking forward to this for a long time. Honestly, when it comes to UFCs, it's hard for me to remember which number it is. With the wrestling pay-per-views, they always have names, whether if it's the Elimination Chamber, WrestleMania, Royal Rumble. You're just sort of linked in by this. UFC fights are always just the name and the number, and that's it. I've been remembering this one because back in the day, I was a huge Blink 182 fan. It has nothing to do with this, but fell in love with the Rock Show. I was a big fan of theirs. They had their big breakup, and then they had their comeback after the Travis Barker's plane crash. And I don't even know why I'm talking about this. They had a CD come out after their reunion. I've never heard it. I don't know if I just don't want to relive the past, and maybe it won't be as good as it once was, but, they went their own ways with Angels and Airwaves and Plus 44, and they were both good bands, and I don't know. I never heard anything off the CD, so it must not be that good. But today is UFC 182. It's also going to be the New Japan show coming to you live from the Tokyo Dome. This will be the UFC 182 pay-per-view predictions for the UFC Light Heavyweight Championship. You got the big fight of Jon Jones going up against Daniel Cormier. We've been talking about this fight for a good long time. This is going to be the most expensive UFC pay-per-view of all time. It seems like fights keep going up and up and up, whether if it's UFC or whether if it's boxing. It seems like boxing pushes the limits, and UFC is always playing catch-up. We've seen the fights for Mayweather, and we've seen the fights for Pacquiao go to over $70. This one's going to be $64.95. Lots of rumors of Pacquiao and Mayweather ever do get in the ring. It's going to be a $100 pay-per-view fight. This fight right tonight is probably going to be just one match. There is Donald. No. Cerrone's going to be fighting in the co-main event. He's pretty much chump change. I've heard his name before, but I don't think he's anything that anybody's paying for the show for. It's just one name that happens to be in there. Yesterday we had the weigh-ins. I watched those. They seemed like it was a pretty fun ordeal. I honestly was hoping that Jones and Cormier were going to be, pushing each other around, being in the same room for the same time. And, last time we had the press conference, they had the big hoopla where the banner fell over and all that. But basically, both guys weighed in. I believe it was at 205. They both made weight. So the fight's good to go. There was lots of rumors about yesterday behind the scenes. We had Jones and Cormier talking smack to each other in the sort of meeting just for the president, Dana White, and the fighters, sort of giving them their smack talk about UFC 182 is going to be the best fight of all time. It's all on you guys to pick it up from here. Basically, these guys just don't like each other, and Cormier feels really disrespected. Jon Jones has been using against Cormier that he only finished 4th in the Olympics. That's a really good sort of accomplishment. I wish I finished 4th in the Olympics. That's all I gotta say. Jones feels really confident. Jones has lost a fight before, but it was because of the elbows in that DQ fight. Jones went up against Glover Teixeira, who was also undefeated in his last fight. A lot of people thought that Glover Teixeira had a chance to beat him. Jon Jones came out and he beat him. That was a good fight. Jon Jones is probably one of the most hated UFC fighters of all time. I don't know if it's because of his DUI or whether it's just his confident attitude, but as much as people hate him, the last few fights I've seen, he comes walking out to Bob Marley, he comes walking out to Hot in Here by Nelly. That crowd gets pumped. He sort of plays a song on his walk to the ring that makes you forget that it's him. You get pumped up, and you're ready for a good fight. Daniel Cormier, a little bit of a plus. He's a WWE fan. He loves the wrestling just like me. So that's something I got to give to the guy. Give him a little thumbs up. John Jones has the most submission wins inside of his division. A lot of people are thinking that Cormier is going to get in there and be able to out wrestle John Jones. So I think that some people might be sleeping on John Jones being able to finish this match by some sort of a submission. I think that a lot of people are thinking that John Jones is going to have to stand up and square up with this guy and be able to knock Cormier out and not be able to get down on the floor and wrestle with him because of his Olympic past. But we'll see what's going to happen. Cormier is going to try to out wrestle the guy. John Jones is going to try and stand up and try to finish him. John Jones definitely has the height and the reach over Daniel Cormier. I can really see this as John Jones getting the knockout in the third round. That's the way I really feel that this one's going down. I talked to my little buddy Matt Beast yesterday, and that was his prediction as well. 2015 is going to start out with probably their biggest show, UFC 182. It's going to be coming down. John Jones, Daniel Cormier. This is the last go-round, guys. This is going to be as good as it gets. Let's see what happens. Peace out, everybody.